All right, we are live. Cool. Okay. Hello, hello, everyone. Let me get the chat running. There we are. Hey, Dan. Hey, James. How's it going, everyone? Let's get things checked out accordingly here. So I'm on the Laravel framework project. Let's check out master and get fetch, not origin, let's fetch upstream so we get all of Laravel's latest goodness, which is going to be a lot. I haven't made a contribution in a few months here, so there's a crazy number of tags. But I want to check out the Laravel, probably want to check out the 8.x. I think they like things committed to 8.x, and then they can be ported around from there if necessary. So let's do git check out 8.x. Cool. All right. Yeah, hey everyone. Hey Adrian. I'm not sure how to, from Ghana. Cool. Delphrain? Is that Delphrain? Hopefully I'm saying that right. Hello to you too, Ghana. That's awesome. All right. Okay, so there's two things I'm going to jump right in because I'm kind of restricted to like an hour today. We're expecting our first little one any minute now, so we're trying to get a couple errands done before that happens. Maybe today, maybe not, I don't know, but we're trying to get some things done. So I got an appointment at noon, which I got to get to. So anyway, what I want to do though in this live stream is do two quick things to Laravel, and in fairness, these have been attempted multiple times before and failed, or were closed. The PRs were closed. So I'm hoping that with a more modern twist and a better PR description, maybe they'll make it in. So we'll see. But anyway, let me know. Yeah, let me know that everybody can see me and hear me okay. I'm assuming it's all good considering the chat. Hey Ralph, hey Liam. Cool. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is add an expects to the facade helpers. It has a should receive, but it doesn't have expects, and I feel like should receive is a little bit of a foot gun. It's one of those things where it probably doesn't behave the way you think it does, especially when you're new to testing. So before we get into it, let's kind of demonstrate what I mean there, because I think sometimes this kind of blows people's minds. Again, when they're starting out the test, and can be one of those little gotchas. So let me just bring up the testing layer. Let's see here. And it doesn't even need to be a special test. It can just be a PHP unit test. So let's just make a new file. Or well, you know what? There was a PHP unit test. Let's try this. PHP unit test. Yay. Let's call it mock test. No, not that. Wow, PHP Storm, terrible. All right, let's just make a new file. Let's call it mock test. And we'll just say namespace is tests. And we'll say class is mock test. And it extends test case from PHP unit, because we don't need all the craziness just yet. And let's just make a simple test case, and this will just be test should receive. And let's spell correctly today, shall we? There we go. All right. And so what I want to do is, it doesn't really matter. Let's just make any mock, and we'll just say mockery mock, and we'll say something like mock should receive foo, right? And then we can just make some kind of arbitrary assertion, like assert true. I just don't want to end up with a risky test, so let me just kind of make an assertion, and that's it, right? Okay, so this mock should receive foo as part of our test, right? And of course, we're not going to call that. So let me just do vendor bin PHP unit tests mock tests, and everything passes. That's not right? Like, it shouldn't have passed. We never called mock foo in our code, right? So that's the problem with should receive. It's a little bit of a got you. Even though you're saying something should receive, it doesn't necessarily mean that it did receive. There's a couple different ways to test that. Some people do, assertions afterwards, should have received. The terminology there is a bit wonky, and I do think that there are ways around this, of course, either in the ways in which you test. The simplest thing to do, and what most people do, is they just throw a once on there. You actually specify that, hey, this should receive it at least once. It has to get it at least once. And now we should see that we get a failure. No, we don't. What did we break here? Coverage, test results. Oh, my demo is not working here. So assertion's true. Mock should receive foo once. Oh, you know what? I think you have to say something like use, it's like mockery PHP integration. I think you have to count it as like a, there we go. Yeah, if you're getting that for free from Laravel. So since I extended the test case directly, PHP unit, the mockery counts don't like automatically get triggered like the setup and teardown. So let's actually back that up just to make sure this wasn't a recent change. Yeah, okay, so backing that up, starting over from the beginning, should receive foo without any time quantifiers. Actually, the test still pass, even with the proper integration setup and teardown. So when I throw the once on there, then we get the proper error as we expect. So this once is required. Now, the more modern way to do this is expects, and expects doesn't need the quantifier because if we look underneath the covers, we'll see that expects is basically just a shorthand for should receive once. So for those reasons, we get the same failure as before, but I like expects better because it's saying like it expects, it must. It's a little bit harder terminology, and I think as far as the way we would assume that behaves, especially when you're new to testing, you don't end up with this kind of, foot gun scenario where you're saying should receive. And for those reasons, Laravel, I want to add it to the facade. So the facade has a beautiful testing layer built into it with all these different helpful methods that are really just pass-throughs to mockery. You got the spy, you got partial mocks, and then in here you have should receive somewhere in the list. Where is it? Maybe I passed it. There it is, should receive. But we don't have expects, and I'd like to have expects. So I want to add expects so we can say something in our tests like, if you're doing something with cache, you can say, should receive, but you can also say expects. And, foo or remember would be more appropriate, right? So I want to be able to add this to the framework. It doesn't have it currently. So that's what we're going to do first. That's the first thing I want to add. So let's properly drive this out. I took a quick look last night, and the facades test doesn't have the mockery testing stuff built into it. That's actually in like support facades test, I noticed. But anyway, there are tests to make sure that these setup methods work the way we want them to. So we have this should receive can be called twice kind of thing, and all these different things. So we can properly test drive this the way we want. So let's just kind of take a look in here and see how we're testing should receive. And let's just kind of, let's just kind of make sure that, we kind of have the same level of tests within here. So not everything, in fairness, is tested in the framework. Like there are some areas that kind of overlap. So sometimes you wouldn't find a test for these things, but since there is one, I want to make sure that we're going to add one our own way as well. So I'm just going to put these at the bottom. I think sometimes they like them to be alphabetized, but it doesn't look like they're doing that right now. So let's just say something like test expects returns a mockery mock. That's pretty straightforward. Okay, so we've got some proper stubbing. We shouldn't have to change any of that. And then we can say assert instance of facade, and now we'll say expects. And we don't need to do this once. And yeah, okay, they're kind of doing that inline. That's a bit, I've never been a fan of like assigning things inline. It's too dense for my eyes. But anyway, So this should return get mock. The get mock thing's kind of weird. Anyway, and then we actually call app foo bar. Okay, so we're setting up an application stub. We're basically throwing in the container like this foo standard class thing, and then we're saying, hey, when we resolve foo out, we should get this stub, I guess. So it's just a quick way to create kind of like a facade for testing, but to make sure that it's wired up correctly. So let's run this. Let's do, what do we have here? Tests, where is this? Let's go back to PHP Storm. Oh, this is something else. I know I'm kind of gripey about PHP Storm today. And it's like, why am I still using this editor if I'm griping about it so much? There was like a copy path that used to be all top level, and now it's like kind of buried, and I wish it wasn't. Because I loved being able to just copy the path very, very quickly with like a shortcut key, and there's no shortcut for it now. Okay, cool. So call to undefined method expects. Great. So again, kind of some fast and loose TDD here. So of course we're not going to have that method on the expects or on the facade. So let's just kind of borrow this, but I'm going to hollow it out. So let's just call this expects. And for now, I'm just going to return null, just to kind of not totally copy paste cheat there. So let's kind of honor the process. Okay, great. So now we have, what is this? Call to member function with on null. Okay, so of course we're just returning null now. So we're getting farther. Good. Let's check this real quick. Initiate a mock expectation on the facade. I'd kind of like this to have a different name. In fairness, the should receive probably should be the one that gets a different title. But for now, we'll leave that alone. Okay, so this really behaves exactly the same way. It should get the facade accessor to get kind of the name of the facade, and then it should determine, hey, is this already mocked? If it's not mocked, then or if it is mocked, then resolve the instance that's been in the container, assuming that it's the mock. Otherwise, create a mock. And then finally, just again, the shorthand delegation that's happening, this becomes expects. All right, so if we run this, everything passes. So pretty lightweight copy paste. So I want to increase this now with some test coverage, because that just doesn't, it's really no different than should receive on the surface. And again, my argument would be that should receive should probably be the one that has better test case methods to distinguish the difference. But let's just kind of mess with this a little bit. So I'm fine that it expects returns a mock. So, and let's say test expect returns. What I want to do here is actually kind of make sure that when we don't call this, there's a failure. So I'm not exactly sure what I want to call this method yet. So let's just say something like test expect throws, or I don't really want to test mockery. I just want to test that that there's a failure. Let's just say something silly like requires expectation. I kind of just want to see that this fails, that it never got called. Yeah, exactly. I kind of like to test for that, right? I want to have some kind of test case that differentiates this between should receive. Now again, the impetus really should have been on should receive. That's a lot of shoulds. Yeah, I mean, I probably would have written this similar test for should receive to demonstrate that, like, look, should receive kind of calls should receive in mockery. That's really all I'm trying to do here. I don't necessarily want to test mockery. I just want to test that, you know, this creates not only the mock instance, but it could create a mock instance with should receive is the point, right? And so see how this is passing now? So I want to strengthen this test to demonstrate, like, hey, if someone came in here and turned this into something that wasn't its specs, that's going to be a problem, right? So let's put this back to expects, and I think you can say something like this. expects exception, and we could do something like invalid count exception, I guess. The mockery. We could do something like this, I think. Class. Let's try this. Alright, illuminate failed asserting that type exception of type is thrown. Yeah, see, this is where it gets a little tricky because these exceptions aren't thrown till the very end, so we don't really know. We don't really know that they're thrown here and now. Crap. I'm trying to think. Let's get a sip of the espresso here, see if that jars my memory. I'm trying to think how can I make this the test I want? If anyone has any idea in the chat, please don't hesitate to point me in the right direction. Let's see here. I can't expect the exception because it's not thrown within this test case. It's thrown when, you know, during the teardown, effectively, of the PHP unit lifecycle. So I need to do something here that demonstrates that this would fail. I know they have like annotations. I think the annotations were removed in PHP 9. I'm pretty sure. Or sorry, PHP Unit 9. Yeah, I'm not sure how to do that, to be honest. This is probably good enough to PR, in fairness. I mean, it's a pretty obvious bit, but I'd really like to kind of have some reassurance around the expects. And honestly, the fact that I can't test for this expected exception is probably why this should receive bits we're missing. So I wonder if there's some kind of like low-level way for me to like inspect this mock. Let's take real quick. This is kind of ugly. Let's see how ugly it's going to be though. Let me just DD this mock, and I'm wondering if there's a way for me to like verify that it expects it once or something stupid like that. Because I don't really care underneath if you called expects. I care that you get the once built into it. Yeah, see, here's seems to be some kind of limitation bits here. So it definitely knows like if it was called or not. Yeah, mockery. There seems to be some things. So I wonder if you can do something like mock. I don't want to do expect. Can you do this? What's this? This is kind of ugly. Let's see what this says. Does it say 1? It does say 1. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. It's not awesome, but let's do that. Let's turn this into test expect returns a mockery object with required expectation, or with expectation required, or something like that. Expectation required. Why can I not type today? Expectation. There we go. And then let's borrow, again, this is a little ugly to test this low-level thing, because if mockery ever changes the name of that method, now, you know, we're failing, but I like that little bit of reassurance that, you know, it's going to expect it once. And then, of course, we'll just allow it to call based on our expectation, similar to before. So everything passes now. If we were to change this to, like, 0 or something weird, of course it starts to fail. So if you, just to prove that if you came back over here and changed this to should receive, that, oh, no, that we should get a failure, but we don't. So that's interesting. Why don't we get a failure there? I would have expected a failure. That has an expectation count of 1. And we don't say once, do we? No, we're not saying once anywhere in here. That's weird. Maybe this is get the count of expectations for this. Maybe you're always 1. So again, maybe this isn't a very good test. I wonder what once. All right, I'm going to give this like 2 more minutes, and then we're just going to leave it as is. At least once. What is that about? That's interesting. I'm just trying to see like when times 1. Never. Twice. So what does times do? Count validator. So it changes the, okay. It changes it to be exact. So I guess before it always expects 1, but it's kind of like a loose count validation or something. Yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't want to end up testing the internals. So we're going to leave this. I'm going to leave the name on here, but it's really not pushing that last bit. So I think this is good enough. All right, let's do this. Let's check our code. Let's remove that test mock test case to just demonstrate the differences. And let's get checkout -b facade expects. Get add -p. All right, so we're going to add this new mock expectation. Again, I'm not a huge fan that it's exactly the same, but I still left that as should receive, so I do at least want to change that. See, that's why I wish I had a failing test to kind of drive out that this, at the end of the day, I don't care if it's like should receive or should receive once. Like, I don't care how you write it. It's just, I kind of want to make sure, kind of want to make sure it's set up, that mock is set up the right way. So I'll think on it maybe before I open the actual PR, but let's move on to the other feature I wanted to mess with. Okay, cool. So that's good enough for now. So let's do get commit -m add expects to built in facade testing methods. All right, cool. Let's go back and check out master. Git pull upstream masters, make sure there hasn't been any commits, and there has been. Strange. Did I not get all those? Uh-oh. Crap. Let me go back and rebase real quick. This might be nasty. Git rebase upstream master. Ooh, I definitely don't want to apply those additional ones. Let's do this. All right, well, again, I'll clean this up later. Let's go back to master and do a git checkout -b for the next thing, which is it's the encrypted cast. All right. Okay, here's the next thing I want to add. Inside of Laravel, let's just bring up Eloquent model casts. Master is not equal. Yes, that's what I just did. That was my mistake. All right, I'll rebase that properly here in a little bit. Let's get that cleaned up though before we start this one. Git fetch upstream. Thank you. Yeah, had a little, like I said, didn't finish my espresso yet. Git reset -- hard upstream 8.x. There we go. Now we should be correct. Okay, so you can make custom casts, and quickly, this has been closed probably about 4 times before, so I fully expect it to be closed. But I was working on this the other day for Shift and another project. I ended up working on it on 2 projects in 1 week. I kind of pinged Taylor about it and just said, hey, like, do you feel this could be core? And, you know, he was just kind of like, if you want to open it up, like, he could see it kind of being one of the additional ones. So the point is that we have all of course, the primitive types, but we also have, you know, object, array, JSON, these built-in kind of named casts. And then of course with the advent of, I think, PHP 7, maybe PHP 6, you can of course make your own custom cast, and the demonstration in the docs is the recreation of the built-in JSON cast type. Super simple, you know, this internal cast bit. But encryption is something that's built into Laravel as well, and this argument's been made in a bunch of the PRs before. It was closed multiple times over the years, but I think with, you know, again, just recent changes in Laravel, I think there's a shot that this could get in there again. So I want to make a encrypted built-in cast. And again, you can create this on your own, which is kind of the argument in the past. You can now make this even easier with custom casts, but I just want that built-in one, right? That's really the long story short. I just want a built-in one. I want to be able to say, you know, encrypted for a field. Like if there's some token and it should be encrypted, boom, I want it. I want that built in. So that's my, you know, completely incoherent argument, not based in logic, other than just I want it. I think inside of has attributes, oh my gosh, there we go. All of the casts are built in here. So we see this JSON object one. So what I would like to do is add some kind of, you know, encrypted version here. So ABCDEF, so it'd go right here. So we'll say something like encrypted, and boom, there it is. And now you're going to automatically have, you know, your data, or I guess that's something we'll have to decide on, but this is probably just strings. So, you know, it would encrypt that particular string. If you're encrypting an object, there's potential serialization there and all sorts of things, and I think there's an argument there that then you need to go to like kind of the custom cast land. But if I just have a real simple string, just like JSON or whatever, and I want it to be, you know, handled for me, I just kind of feel like encrypted is right on that boundary of being able to be included, especially since the encryption is handled within Laravel anyway. If the encryption was a third-party package, totally agree, this is not necessarily a native built-in cast type, but since it is, I want one. So this again gets a little interesting with the testing layer. I don't think it's separate into its own cast the way like you'd kind of build it in the real world. I think this is broken out. If we go and find these tests, there's a lot of different spots, but JSON's probably not the best example, but yeah, there's a way in which, not custom pivot, yeah, here we go. This one looks pretty legit. So Eloquent model JSON casting test. We could probably use this as a basis and clean this up to basically make some kind of Eloquent model, you know, encrypted casting test, right? So let's just do that and kind of see where it gets us. Because it looks like decimal casting, date casting, it seems like all the built-in castings are here inside of this testing layer. So again, let's just follow suit, and we'll say encrypted casting test. Let's change this to encrypted casting test. Great. And I have no idea why the namespace is that. That seems incorrect on both accounts, to be honest. So you know what? I am going to clean that up here. These are all wrong. Okay, mental note, do a little base coding there, a little Boy Scouting. Let's clean that up as part of this PR. Yeah, that's the wrong namespace, it seems like. Oh wait, no. They actually are making this test underneath. That's strange. Yeah, they're making, see, this is Illuminate tests, and this is app integration database. These namespaces are all jacked up. All right, this one's correct. I'm going to leave it like this. I don't know why it would have been another way. Okay, let's understand what they were doing here. It looks like they're making a table for JSON casts, and it's just a lot of different ways in which you could write JSON. You got a basic string JSON field, you have an array, an object, a collection. So all the different ways you can deserialize and serialize it. So test strings are castable, that makes sense. Test arrays are castable. Test objects are castable. Yeah. There we go. Okay. So we probably don't need all the different ways in which this is done. We probably just need a single string. And again, this is up for debate. You may want to make Encrypted handle additional field types, but for now, I don't think that's necessary. Again, this could always be added on later, so let's get rid of these additional ones. Whoops, that's not what I meant. Let's close this sidebar. All right, and I don't think we need all these now, so let's just do something like string, and we'll make this a column of, you know, secret or something, right? And let's make this, you know, 1,000, something large. What's the default? There is no default length. Is the default length? I guess it's platform dependent. 255 maybe. All right, and then let's go look at this JSON cast, and let's change this to maybe say something like encrypted cast. So let's just change this to encrypted cast. Oh, I see why these namespaces are a little weird now. Okay. And we'll call this just same thing. Or do we need to change the table name? I don't know why we need to change the table name there. It should just do the right thing. But this does need to be changed. Encrypted cast. Casts. All right. No timestamps. Everything's unguarded. And let's call this secret and say something like encrypted, right? And that's that. That's going to be the ultimate goal, is we want to be able to say in our casts, it's encrypted, right? Whatever it might be. And again, initially it's actually not whatever it might be. It's kind of just strings. But let's play on with that for now. So if I create this as a secret, this is a string. That's fine. We'll just leave that alone. And then we save it. Yeah, we're definitely not going to... We should be able to see this secret as that, but when it's in the database, you know, we kind of don't really know what it is. So I'm trying to think. We need to do something like to do. We need to see that it's encrypted in the database, right? However, we might want to test that. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure how we're going to want to do that, but we'll think on that. There's a lot that we've set up here, so we can start building a lot more. So Illuminate, test, integration, database. We don't need that. There we go. And now that should go to the right spot. There we go. All right, so that's the appropriate namespacing that we should have been using. Cool. All right. Let's run this. Vendor bin PHP unit. And let's do the little dance of stealing that path again. Okay, class Illuminate support array not found. Okay. Where are we using array? Oops. We're not using array, and we also don't have any of these. Let's make this secret. Close all that back down. All right, what is What is wrong here? Array. Eloquent model encrypted string, line 19. Line 19. What is increments use array? Class illuminate support array not found. I'm not using array on line 19. Line 16. Parent setup. What in the world? I don't know who's using array. What is the problem there? Do one of these other tests work? Maybe that was something very strange related to the namespace. Eloquent model JSON. Yeah, see, it has the same error. What's wrong with this? Test objects class illuminate support array not found. Composer update. maybe I don't have everything installed or something. Yeah, I mean, update probably shouldn't have been what I did, but that's okay. Probably just should have done install to honor the current versions that they have. All right. Does that fix it? Yeah, it does. Okay. My bad. Yeah, composer update. Yeah. Sorry about that. All right, let's go back to our test. And everything passes, which it kind of should, because there's no encryption really working, just yet. So of course, when there's nothing that this encrypted thing does, so whenever it says encrypted, it's just going to give you back a string. So we kind of need to drive out this other piece to really kind of get that working. So I'm trying to think. We could do like a raw query and see that it's like not this is a string. We could do something where like we demonstrated that the database doesn't have, we could do something like this assert database, is there a does not have? Assert database not has. Database missing, there we go. So we could say something like encrypted casts. Again, this isn't a super communicative test. I'm not a huge fan of this, but we could say something like our object ID and then the secret is this is a string. So it's kind of like, yeah, in Laravel land we see this is a string, but in database land we shouldn't see that ID with this is a string. Like it shouldn't be what we just created. There's no way, right? And this still passes. So that's not even a good test, because this should fail because it should find it. And again, I'm not sure. We're kind of like using Laravel to test Laravel, so sometimes you can kind of get it in a weird place there. I would have shit, we're running the JSON Cast. I'm sorry. Encrypted. There we go. Found similar result. This is not a string. This is not a string. Okay, cool. So this is a string. Failed asserting that a row in the database encrypted cast does not match the attributes. Found similar results. Why does it say this is not a string? I'm in encrypted. Test strings are castable. This is a string. It's kind of strange it's saying this is not a string. What is that like something that assert database missing is doing? Object, secret. Yeah, this is a string. Found similar results. This is not a string. That's kind of strange. I don't know why it's saying this is not a string. But anyway, it's time to fix it is the point. Okay, so if we go to has attributes and let's pull this up, let's start looking around in here. I think there's a JSON. Yes, here we go. So we need to add a bit of a check here to kind of look for the case of being an encrypted value. So let's just kind of clean that up, and we'll say encrypted, and we'll do something like, let's say this, let's follow suit here, as decrypted value, as decrypted string, maybe? Or we could say like from encrypted string. Let's try that. I'm just following kind of like suit of kind of the naming convention here. I'm not totally sold on it, but all right, let's go down and find, that should kick us off to kind of go one way. So let's find where we're doing that from JSON and just kind of put it in the same place. Here we go. So let's just put this here, and we'll say something like, well, we'll just copy this actually. That way we get the nice doc block. So let's get this working, and then we'll kind of clean up the remainder. So that's kind of ugly. Yeah, and it's interesting that this takes like an as object. So see, there's already kind of a precedent for being able to just say if something's going to be an object or not. I'm not sure the syntax for that, but again, we'll start with a string, and I could easily see somebody fast follow this, you know, and say, you know, oh hey, we also want to, you know, decrypt objects as well or something. So, all right, let's change this to Crypt and decrypt string, I think it is. Let's import it. There we go. And that should be that. There's the payload. Yeah, cool. So from encrypted string. All right, cool. So no application key has been specified. Okay, we could fix that. Let's go to PHP unit .dist, I guess. Ooh, where are we setting the test environment stuff? env.test fixtures, foobar. How are they loading up? How are they loading up encryption? We'll have to look at how we'll have to look at how that's working elsewhere in the application, but for now, well, no, we need to figure that out now. Let's see here. I would have expected there to be some kind of like in-memory kind of stuff here. See, I could set the app key here, but it doesn't. It's clearly not where Laravel is doing that. So they're doing this elsewhere. Maybe Bootstrap? Nope. Maybe. Where are they doing this in tests? There's a Bootstrap test. There's a testing. Is there like a test case? James, are you still on here? Do you know by chance where set up the test environment? I'm just trying to figure out like how like env stuff is being set. I know orchestral test bench, you can do, you know, some things. Oh, okay, so they're loading in migrations. So there's kind of like some special stuff that's happening here where they're preloading those. set up on each test. Yeah, but how do you set up the app key? I mean, it's a very like core thing. Again, I know orchestral test bench, orchestral test bench Laravel set env. I know you can do it like in a what do you call it? Annotation. But again, I just don't know if that's the way like Laravel normally does it. Check out database tests. Yeah, we're in the database tests. Check out database tests. Okay, checking out database tests. Got anything more specific for me? It's connection. Okay. So yeah, they're definitely, I can see where they're messing with like inline config stuff, but yeah, I'm not sure what you're saying, Adrian, so thanks, but not enough detail. Let's see here. I know there's a way to kind of, yeah, mess with the app config. Like I could do something where like I set this. I'm pretty sure you can set this somehow very explicitly. Let's do this just for now. Let's just see if I can throw this in here and say something like, this isn't awesome, I'm not going to leave it here, but I want to move past this because like I said, I've only got about 15 more minutes and I want to see this working. Let me jump out to Turbo Zonda and we'll do PHP artisan key generate -- show. And there's a legitimate key now. So let's just see if this gets us farther, and if not, then we'll try something else. The payload is invalid. Okay, well that's actually a better error because of course the payload is invalid because we didn't encrypt it when we saved it. So we've only got one way going, so this is good. Okay. Oh, search for app key. Yeah, that makes more sense. Let's find out. Key generate command. Yeah, doesn't look like they're doing it anywhere else other than the actual generate command, which I just ran. So that's okay. Again, this works. It's just probably not where I want to leave it forever. So I'll find a better way to do it, like just for this test, maybe. Okay, so we've got one way going, but now we need kind of like the other way out. So there's a from JSON in here, but now I want to know where is as JSON called, right? Where do we go kind of the other way, right? So as JSON. So let's see if there's like some kind of other method that kind of checks for like when things come out. Okay, so set attribute. So it's probably in here. Okay, so I'm gonna close the chat so I can read this a little bit better. So, or well, you know what? Let's pull it over here because I just feel like that's easier to read for now. Okay, so set attribute. First we'll check the presence of a mutator. Okay. If an attribute is listed as a date, we'll convert it. Cool. If it's class castable, okay. If the attribute contains a JSON arrow, otherwise we just set it. Seems like there should be more checking than that. Maybe we could see how they do it in the Crypt tests. Yeah, good call, Dan. That's actually a real good call. We should see what they're doing there. Let's just get the encryption running though first, because it's right now I need to figure out where the appropriate place in has attributes is to kind of do the casting. What is this is class castable? What does this do? Okay, so if it's not in getCast, then return false. Cast type if it's in array of the primitive cast types, then return false. So it's not class castable, so we definitely shouldn't be there. Okay. So we go down here, is JSON castable? I see. I think we're gonna need our own little check here, to be honest. Because if you think about it, I think all of the class castables are gonna get caught there, and then if you look at this JSON castable, it's not just JSON, it's basically all the other 4 like additional non-primitive types. So if you look at this, you got integer, real, float, double, decimal, string, boolean. Okay, those are all primitive, right? And then you have object array, collection, and then of course JSON. Those are the 4 that we just saw is JSON castable. And then the rest are dates, which got picked up. So if we look at kind of where this kind of progression, is it a date attribute, meaning is it one of those castable versions? No. Is it a class that you've specified as castable? Yes or no. And then is it JSON castable? So I think ours really belongs kind of like underneath here, or honestly even after all this JSON stuff, and it kind of needs to be like, you know, is encrypted castable or something like that. And then of course it's not null, and then we would do something like cast attribute as decrypted string, maybe decrypted string. All right, and then what are we looking at here? Has cast key. Okay, for now let's just inline this, because like I said, I'm running a little low on time, so let's inline this and get it working, and then I'll refine it. So let's just change this to say has cast encrypted, and if it is, whoops, that was the wrong one. Let's copy that. I'm getting flustered because I'm out of time. Paste that there. There we go. All right, so if it has cast, and let's just clean this up as well. So we'll say something like to do make a beautiful cascading Laravel comment for this. All right, so if it is encrypted and it's not null, then we're going to attempt to decrypt it. And of course, PHP Storm's not going to work inside of kind of a dynamic trait like this. So let's just drop that in here, and we'll say public function cast that. And that's probably why if we go look cast attribute, we see that it's doing, yeah, some kind of special stuff here where we would do theoretically some extra checks. So let me actually copy this instead, and we'll change this to decrypted string. There we go. And here we'll do as decrypted string, but I'm not going to make that method just yet. So let's just say crypt wait, I think I have this backwards. Okay, I said from encrypted string. So here it's kind of like you're casting it as an encrypted string, which is, yeah, it's a little bit mind-bending. Let's change this to as encrypted string, because the mutator, yeah, the mutator is when you change it, is actually underneath, it actually gets stored, and then the accessor is kind of where it decrypts it, pulling it out. So it's kind of a lot back and forth. But again, let's just see if this passes for now, and I'm probably going to slow down and give this a much better review. Okay, so of course that passes. What would be nice, again though, is to see part of me kind of wants to like see in the database like what it looks like. Like this logically, like from a really high integration level, like that makes sense, right? I shouldn't see that particular object in the database, but part of me kind of wants to see like that ID is in the database, and then just that its secret is gibberish somehow. I wish I could like you could theoretically, since this is an integration test, you could mock Crypt. That's how you could get around the app key. You could actually mock Crypt and control what the values are, and then check that it's in the database as that, and that would absolutely confirm that you were encrypting and decrypting the string accordingly. So that is an option. But I kind of like the integration-y test of this. I just wish that there was a way to say something here of like, and again, if we control the key, then we do kind of know like what, you know, the hash should be. Kind of like when you get the user factory, the Laravel, out of a default Laravel application, the user factory has just like a pre-built hash of what like password is. So we could probably do something like that too. That's an option. So anyway, food for thought. Again, I apologize I'm out of time, but real quick, let's just take a look at the Crypt tests and see kind of what Laravel is using here. So let's see. Encrypt cookies test, encryptor test. Here we go. Let's see if this has anything kind of interesting. So they just say not the same. Yeah. Doesn't seem to be any kind of like fancy control here. Let's look at that encrypted cookies test. Maybe that has something. Yeah, they just control. Yeah, they control the encryptor. So that's kind of what's happening there. They're controlling what the encryptor actually uses as kind of the key, right? This encryptor probably takes a key in a cipher, yeah. So that's something else we could do, again, for this test. We could actually control that. That way we're not having to set the app key and whatnot. But again, this is a bit of arguably a unit test, whereas the other database tests are actually running through test bench. So it kind of makes sense to run them as an application with kind of an app key. So I think this is a fair start. I'm not happy with the integration in CastAttribute, so I definitely want to give it a final review, and then once I do, I'll open up a PR for it, and you know, we'll see. Fingers crossed. Again, it was a fun exercise either way. You know, it's very easy to make this in a class or a custom casts class, but I do think there's an argument to be made for it being built in, provided it was done, you know, in a no pun eloquent way. So yeah, once I clean these up, I think there's probably an opportunity to submit a PR. We'll see. We'll see if it makes it or not. So thanks everyone for watching. Like I said, check out on Twitter. You'll see the PRs come across for this here in a bit. Once I finish my lunch meeting. So, and check for spelling errors everywhere. So thanks for being with me. See you all next time.